everyone. Today we're talking about WheeshtE. I'm Valerie, and I'm here with Linda Jennings from Color Storm Yarns. We're starting a new chapter. Linda, what's the chapter about?
This chapter is called Doubt Yourself, or Have Doubts. Have Doubts. And she jumps in right away with a quote from John Keats,
Mm-hmm.
whom I don't know much about. So I was so blown away by the first two pages, I haven't even looked at the assignments yet. I'm kind of scared. I'm
Scared? Are you
because this,
having doubts?
yes, this is touching me very deeply, and I'm sort of thinking one of my assignments is going to be to read John Keats because I'm so impressed with this whole concept of he talks about negative capability, which I had never heard of. She writes, a few days before Christmas in 1817, John Keats strolled home from an evening at the pantomime with his friends, animated by a lively discussion about the nature of creativity and the writer's role. In a letter to his brothers, he recalled thinking about the conversation as follows. He says, "Several things dovetailed in my mind, and at once it struck me. What quality went to form a man of achievement, especially in literature, and which Shakespeare possessed so enormously, I mean negative capability. That is, when a man is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after the fact and reason." So she goes on to explain what negative capability means. He doesn't mean doing nothing or acting negatively. It's all about getting comfortable with having doubts.
Yeah, and what comes up for me is the attachment to the doubt and the ability to recognize it without allowing it to get in the way. And for me, doubt and uncertainty go together they're kind of synonymous. But then not to be mad or angry or have a reaction to the doubt that bubbles up, right? Like being scared and doing it anyway, or having doubts and doing it anyway.
So I was reading about this in the early morning hours, and it just hit me so hard. So I wrote down, what does this seem to mean to me? It means question yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Consider several points of view. Tolerate ambiguity. Have courage to face self-doubt. Shakespeare was perhaps so popular because he was very public about his self-doubt and that theme that comes up over and over again in his plays. And it occurred to me, that word popular. You want to be popular? Then be open about your own self-doubt, but not in a way that draws more attention to yourself.
Mm.
So I think what I learned was like a baby step in this idea was self-deprecation.
Mm-hmm.
And that has its place. But I was thinking, okay, but the next step is just shut up and listen. Hod your Wheesht,
Mm-hmm.
what came up in the other chapter. Because self-deprecation can be used as a tool just to bring more attention to yourself. Even more is just hod your Wheesht. And if you have that inner self-doubt, I think the whole goal is to listen better.
Yeah, when you say self-depreciation, that to me has a very negative connotation. And to your point, like it's very ego-based and like outside.
Mm.
And what it sounds like we're trying to move towards is humility and like the quiet. Not that you're denying that the doubts are there, but there's a humble way to express that if you're with somebody else.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
when you're young, I was just thinking about my life. When you're young, life is terrifying. You have no
Mm-hmm.
idea maybe where you're going to go to college, who you're going to marry, what job are you going to get. And it takes a long time to find your place in the adult world, right? And slowly make those huge decisions and hope like crazy that you didn't make too many ginormous mistakes and that you survive. And day to day, you cope, right? And then let's say that goes mildly successful. Maybe you end up with children. That's terrifying because you have this little life that you've got to protect and teach. And so I was just thinking that no wonder people gravitate towards certainty.
Mm-hmm.
In order to be comfortable with doubt, self with self-doubt, with uncertainty, I think you've got to either A, have a really strong inner safety net, a family or faith or something,
Yeah.
or else I think you just go mad. And there have been so many great artists that did go mad, commit suicide, did not have a very good outcome. I mean, it's just so what she's talking about to me is about the gutsiest thing a person can do.
Living out loud.
With humility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking about like for me in the creative process, all of the doubts that I have and like if you're a painter, where do you put the brush and where do you put that dot of paint and how when the brush like hovers over the canvas and you're like, I think it goes here, but maybe not, and like that process of and paint is the easiest thing to paint over if it's like the stakes are so low.
Just wait for it to dry and do it
Do
again.
something else.
You don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean,
rip it out. Oh, that didn't work.
right? I'm working on a project and I don't know if it's gonna pan out. We'll just have to stay tuned to find out.
Yeah, I've got this project that I invested a lot of time into. And it's like the second attempt of a pattern that I wrote years ago. It's like trying to be an update of that pattern. And it's super complicated. And I'm trying to rewrite the pattern. I think I'm just going to have to face the fact that I can't do it.
Is that, I don't know, is that true?
I think one of my assignments in the back of this chapter is going to be, write down some of your self-doubts, and I'd rather not. Thank you very much. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The
But
thing around this that comes up for me is Byron Katie's work.
mm,
And she talks about like the thought model and how you start with your thought and then you work through this sequential step of really like thinking, like, it's a thought model. So you're doing thinking around your thoughts and how, that's part of this conversation, the idea of self-doubt and how you can shift your mindset, neuroplasticity, like all of these things.
Let me write her down. So Kate, we can put her in our notes below too.
Byron Katie, the work.
Myron Katie. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's not a completely unique thought. There's a lot of artists that have obviously that have struggled with this and really come to grips with it. And I've noticed over the years that some people just to have a better handle just are born with some of these skills already. Like, so I had four children, and one of them just popped out of my womb with a really pretty good grip on this. I'll just never forget like her very first spelling test because I homeschooled, and her very first spelling test, she got like a C or something on it. She was never particularly the best student, and she couldn't count to save her life. I really had great creative fun trying to figure out how to teach her. But her reaction to getting a C on the spelling test was like, oh, well, I could have had a D. See you later. 5 years old, 6 years old. She had no problem with, she had no insecurities about failure. And later on in her grown-up life, she faced her math, her lack of math skills, and took classes over again and eventually became a proficient computer programmer. I mean, it just blows me away whenever I think about it. So I think she's a good example of someone who's just maybe gifted in that way, but I wasn't. Oh, I was a firstborn child. I wanted to be right all the time. I had a very hard time being corrected. I had a very hard time facing the fact that I could be wrong. And for me, the self-deprecating was a good baby step, just to be able to say out loud, that, I really think I wasn't doing that right. I really look at what I just did. I mean, that was ridiculous. To be able to speak about myself with failure, that was a big baby step. But I'm realizing now that one can overdo that. And an even better thing is just to have it be more interior.
The other piece is like, I experienced this thing and I'm trying to problem solve to improve, be better, get a better result. And like brainstorming or trying to problem solve is a different flavor than just bemoaning.
Yeah.
So it's a big loaded concept and idea. And
well, I think, let's see, in Kate's point is to have self-doubt, and it's a tool toward creativity.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can focus back to that. Perhaps today we are too impatient. I understand what that means.
Yeah.
Perhaps we are somehow less able to sit in the dark, less able to confront and tolerate our own uncertainty and doubt.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, and certainly was true of me.
It is probably absolutely no coincidence that we're talking about this on the longest night of the year, where in the Northern Hemisphere, it is the winter solstice. the darkest day of the entire year. And this is what comes up.
One winter solstice in 2022, Linda and Valerie came face to face with negative capability and what that can mean to their creative forces.
So
Yes.
interesting.
Let us be more patient with what we do not know and have no fear to confront it.
To sit in the dark,
Yeah.
in the unknown. Like, the dark can be literal, a dark room, a dark night, a new moon. It can be metaphorical, the unknown results, having an objective but not knowing how to get there, the unknown. I mean, so interesting.
Yeah, it occurs to me that when you voice your doubt, it's another one of those things that gives room for somebody else to come in. You're not sure exactly how to do Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Who's going to come over? When are you going to bring out the food? How long should the present opening last? Should we have stockings this year? What should we have for breakfast? There's a bazillion decisions, and it's often left to the women who are the hostesses to bring it all together with the people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real art to letting an idea evolve, right? And I think sometimes the beginning is just is to be open with, I don't know. What's your suggestion? And let other people come in and be part of the weaving of your event. Um, of and let other people perhaps come into the weaving of your knitting project or your idea, right?
I mean, this experience I had more than one time. It's very common when some people would come into a yarn shop seeking help, needing help with something.
Mm.
And their invisible rule is that if anyone else made a stitch on the project, that they did not make it. And like, what an incredible.
Say that again.
Yeah. So I remember like working in a yarn shop and having more than one customer at different points in time coming in and needing help to fix a mistake or to get past this tricky part.
Okay.
And the act of me knitting or making a stitch on their project
Now I'm getting
completely nulls, voids their ownership and complete.
really
I mean, it's such an interesting idea.
interesting.
But it talks about what you're talking about, where it's a community. We can all work together to make decisions, to create an experience. And I'm talking about the opposite.
Right, so they just want to rip it out and do it themselves if they don't want your hands on their work.
Well, like if I had fixed the mistake, they wouldn't be able to claim that they did it. I mean, one stitch out of thousands, one stitch out of millions, and
Okay.
I
So
mean,
so
they
we give
have.
you permission. If you get help on your project, it's still yours. It's still yours, and you can just feel good about the fact that you were smart enough to go get help. Wow, this represents your intelligence and your creativity to go get help and not just make a mess of it.
Well, I mean, what's a healthier, better way to approach the problem? I don't know. For some people, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, of course, everybody can have maybe their own goals and their own preferences, and everybody's on this journey at a different point, and so we're not trying to say what's right or wrong, but certainly take Brahms' beautiful piece that we talked about in the last chapter, that beautiful symphony. He didn't invent the original melody. Somebody else did. But what he did was he added all the themes and variations to it and all the voices to create them. And
Hmm.
so he did 99% of it. That 1% came from somebody else. That's almost always true in our projects, right? We're taking somebody else's pattern and tweaking it.
I mean, how can we say that any single thing is original?
Right.
Like for us, we may be making it the first time. We may be pulling in components that have never been put together before, a mashup.
Hmm.
But to say that anything is original, I think is a little bit of a misnomer.
Yeah, that's an
The
interesting
world is
direction to
too
go with
big.
this. Yeah, and that's it's a good point, and I think it's a good thing to talk about.
Well, we'll see what the rest of the chapter
Yeah.
brings up.
Well, to your point, the very, very first time that I took somebody's like sweater ruffle and added it to my sweater, I was on a retreat. I hadn't knit too many years yet. And I said, wow, is this plagiarism? Am I allowed to do this? I mean, I felt very uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
But the teacher said, no, no, that's okay. People do that all the time. You take her ruffle and you take, you know, her edging and someone else's collar, but it's still your sweater because you're the one
Hmm.
that put it together that way. So I can remember those days when I didn't know any better.
But that's self-doubt, what you just described, right? Like that moment of, I want to do it, but should I do it?
Okay. Yeah, and I voiced it. That's good. I didn't keep it to myself, right? So it was a
I
learning
mean,
moment.
yeah, all of these things.
Good, good. Well, we have lots and lots more to talk about this chapter. We might take 3 sessions to talk about this chapter.
Super juicy.
So enjoy your creativity with this wonderful, wonderful winter season or whenever we happen to catch you watching the show. This
Hmm.
little podcast. What is this? A little video post? I'm not quite sure what to call it yet.
Virtual book club. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
know.
So we're still working on tweaking with our creativity, and all that's part of good, healthy living and enjoy this special, wonderful holiday season, everybody.
Mm.
Bye bye.